Hi, I'm Brandon, and I'm a first-year graduate student in film and television production. But before coming here, I wrote and directed commercials with an ad agency. I often use new and emerging technology to encourage audiences to engage with brands, and for me they weren't just gimmicks, but vital tools, like using FPV drone to tour a university, AR for different trucking applications, VR to educate the public on underground utility projects, 3D mapped projection to recruit young pilots, as well as 360 footage to demonstrate the training aircraft students could fly. They definitely did not tell me I would be flying the plane when we took off, but that's all right, we're all good. My idea for you today is actually a bit of a throwback, reimagined for now. Growing up in the 90s, I remember playing Pokemon Snap, a game where you were on a virtual safari, taking pictures of your favorite characters. By the way, best photography game, even today. So I'm watching Saturday morning cartoons, cereal bowl full of sugar, and I see a commercial that there are these kiosks in Blockbuster where you could bring in your game cartridge and physically print off your pictures from the game. This was long before I touched a real camera, and what was cool was it emboldened and rewarded my creativity through technology in a way that I didn't expect, but I could engage with as a kid. And that leads me to today, an approach that encourages character interaction and leads to a new location. I call it a somersault. Let's take my nephew Ambrose. He loves Paw Patrol, and his favorite character is Chase.
Six Paw Patrol Pups!
Let's say there's a new Paw Patrol movie, hasn't been announced yet. In the streaming app, Chase starts an interaction, asks Ambrose what he thinks he should wear that day, and then shows an animated clip of Chase doing something wearing that outfit. Days later, another notification comes in. Chase is still wearing that outfit. He remembers, he asks Ambrose what sort of powers he would want if he were a Mighty Pup. Mighty Pups is the Paw Patrol characters with superpowers. It's very important. Sometimes the interactions are just light, but while the custom Mighty Pup character is generated over time through these prompts and minigames, Chase lets him know that a new film is coming out soon and drops exclusive timed content along the way, which leads to the reveal, Ambrose as a Mighty Pup himself through a creative collaboration with the character over weeks. And if he brings a QR code with the design to the box office, he can even receive a customized figurine. He can watch the movie with that character, which he probably wouldn't even be watching the movie at that point because his brain exploded. So this use case is specific to a children's property, but I feel like it could apply across games, mobile, streaming, web, the list goes on. The point is to establish a personalized relationship with the character through creative acts over time. I call it a somersault because you propel yourself forward, you sort of disorient yourself, and you end up in a place that you weren't expecting, but it feels right, and it was fun. So that's what it should feel like. Thanks for your time.
It's a really good presentation. It's smart. I would love a little more clarity, maybe on an ABC, walking us through how a kid would learn about the property, start to engage, and then execute on that. You kind of danced around it, but it wasn't super clear how you actually executed on it.
How it's executed over time, or like the start of the interaction?
The start, the middle, and then the final. I think the sort of 3 steps to achieve the goal or the multiple goals.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of the idea is just kind of establishing a more interpersonal connection with a character. Like you kind of have the opt-in of engaging with like a pop-up prompt. In that case, it was like a streaming app, but the same could happen in a game, or just like across different media or like an app. But like the prompts grow and become more individualized kind of as the interaction takes place over days, weeks.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
I'm wondering about what's the ecosystem that has to be built around this in order for it to work smoothly.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of it would take place within, I mean, ideally, I mean, the dream would be decisions made, let's use Mighty Pups, like in a streaming app would also carry forward to games, would also carry forward to the real life. And there's like, just kind of like the ecosystem carries as it goes on. But yeah, it would have to be self-contained within like, I guess the account or within
Would
an
it be
app.
a streamlined setup for content creation?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one thing that I thought was kind of interesting that it is so individualized is that it gives a lot of creative like writing opportunities, and because it's not like all the prompts are just asking for information. It really is like, in some cases, it could just be learning more about the character, like their background, or just like how they're feeling that day. And then kind of leads to something that's a bit more collaborative with the character.
The presentation is great, Brandon. I think you've done a really good job. I think I'm just thinking that it brings up so many questions as to how this would be structured in order for the experience to be realized. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
I share the same concern, Brandon, basically from somebody that spent 25 years in the animation industry, building models, rigging them, animating them. I mean, you're creating assets, and for one game, yeah, that's you're basically imposing that or offering that service to whoever owns Paw Patrol, but then you have to replicate that same kind of legwork to build the models, rig them, and animate them, add the different variations into each experience game. How are you planning to create like a universal platform to allow people to tie into the VR experience to leverage the existing assets they've already built, so you actually don't cause any overhead for them to actually create any additional models or any additional rigging or any additional work to add that functionality or that feature to their existing experiences?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, in that example, it was kind of pop-up prompts that didn't require character animation. It was more or less just like 2D sort of things. I mean, essentially what we're talking about with the case of like ending with the product of the character figurine in mind, it's a character generator, much that you would see in a video game or in an app creating an avatar, but just parsed out over time through more interpersonal kind of prompts, so to speak. So, I mean, I feel like there's a precedent where that sort of thing exists across media, but this is just like a different way of.
Are you thinking there's an AI component to this?
Yeah, there certainly could be. I mean, I think it's kind of like story paths and creating those paths so that certain responses elicit different sort of paths so that it feels very individualized and it feels like a collaboration.
So there's a chatbot essentially.
Yeah.
Can I ask, are you planning to, is the idea of this that you are working with existing streaming platforms, or is this its own platform?
I think it would exist with existing. So you already have the built-in audience of this game or this show or this, what have you, this app. And then this is kind of like an ancillary experience that is opt-in, obviously.